Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee. I'm Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the councillor for Banbury West, and I am the chair of this committee. Members of the committee and members of the public, you are being streamed live on YouTube, so let's treat each other with the utmost respect, okay? If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public wishing to speak on an item, once the item has been presented, I will invite you to come as a registered speaker to the desk, and you have 4 minutes to make your representation. You will be timed, and when your 4 minutes is up, I will let you know and ask you to tie up and finish. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic voting system this evening. Yeah, and the outcome of the vote will be told to you by this lovely lady on my left, Taz. I'll begin with some housekeeping. If you have mobile phones, please put them on silent or switch them off, whichever. The toilets are located in the foyer if you need to go, and if the fire alarm does go off, we're not expecting a drill, so there will be a fire somewhere in the building, and the exits are behind you, and we'll just meet on the grassy part on West Paddock. Okay, if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting on my left. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tasneem Safdar. I'm the Head of Legal and Procurement, and will be assisting the committee this evening in respect of any legal issues.
Ben Story, Democratic and Member Services Officer.
Chris Lomax, Councillor Wantly East.
Matthew Farnworth, Councillor for Seven Stars.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, and I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor David Shaw, representing Howick Priory in Penwortham.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Will Adams and I represent Middlefirth in Penwortham.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Sandra in Walton Ward.
Good evening, Hayden Williams, Leyland Central.
Good evening, Councillor Mary Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor Elaine Stringfellow, Councillor for Lostock Hall.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Lisa Matthewson, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, Chris Salby, Development Planning Team Leader.
Good evening, Fiona Hope, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Elizabeth Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement.
Okay, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. All right, item number 2, I don't have any apologies for absence, so we can skip straight on to item number 3. Do we have any declarations of interest in tonight's meeting? Councillor Williams.
Yes, in relation to item 6, Model Farm, I am a member of Farrington Parish Council. Any discussions the council have had has been without me being present. So I'm just disclosing an interest as a member of Farrington Parish Council. Yeah, I'm just disclosing an interest. I am a member of Farrington Parish Council. I have not been present at any discussions regarding Model Farm that the council have had. So it's a non-pecuniary, non-prejudicial interest.
So that's a personal interest. You're taking part in the discussion. You're not leaving. Yep.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, item number 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of June. I have read them and agree with them. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Could we go to the electronic votes? If you weren't here for that meeting, you do need to abstain.
Those minutes are approved, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Taz. Okay, moving swiftly on to item 5. Catherine, appeal decisions, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've received one appeal decision since the last meeting of Planning Committee, and it relates to a site at Newgate Lane, Whitestake, and relates to a permission in principle application for the erection of 2 dwellings. The site lies in the Green Belt, and the inspector had to consider whether or not the application was inappropriate development in the Green Belt and whether there would be any harm to openness of the Green Belt. So in looking at the application, the inspector had to consider whether the scheme could constitute limited infill within a village. And given the characteristics of the site and the spacing around it, the inspector found that it wasn't something that could be considered as infill development, and therefore concluded that the scheme was inappropriate development in principle, resulted in harm to openness, and therefore was unacceptable as there were no very special circumstances to outweigh that harm. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, good news. Thanks for that, Catherine. All right, moving on to item number 6 this evening, Model Farm, Croston Road, Farrington. Lisa, if you would like to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Members may recall that this application was brought before Planning Committee at the meeting on the 7th of December last year, with the item being deferred to obtain further clarity around the status of the site as previously developed land, and to consider a reduction in the number of units, and also to address any potential conflict with the potential route of the dualling works for the A582. The former model farm site, which is located at number 240 Croston Road, is approximately 2 kilometres north of Leyland Town Centre. The application relates to the demolition of existing vacant buildings which are located in the Green Belt. The site was previously in commercial use and therefore considered as previously developed land under the definition in the NPPF. The application proposes new build start-up units which will provide employment opportunities and redevelop a vacant site. So this image just before just shows you've got the application site there noted at the west-hand side of the western roundabout there, and you can see all round both of the roundabouts there are a number of commercial units and built development, which are also some of which are in the Green Belt also. It's just a more blown up view from a historic picture which shows some of the hard standing areas as well to the west of the site, which potentially had trailers on those. So that's just the access point that's looking north up towards the existing roundabout, the picture on the left hand side, and that's just the existing access which is actually located behind the transit van on the right hand side, to the right hand side of the existing dwelling on the site which is vacant. These are some of the images which you've seen at the last presentation on the site, which were shown, as are these ones here. These images are newer images, and on the point about the land use, since the application was last presented at the committee, an application was submitted and has been determined for the prior notification of agricultural development under Class R. The proposal was for a change of use of 3 of the existing buildings into storage and part of a further building into storage use, and a decision was made that prior approval was not required. This, as you can see by the 2 pictures on the screen now before you, shows that this has been implemented, and therefore the principle of the whole of the site has now been established as previously developed. So I hope this clarifies a point that was made at the previous committee. This image on the screen now just shows the previous site plan as came to the last committee in December, with the units and the layout there. And this is the current layout that we do have. And notwithstanding the point about the principle of development, the applicant has also taken the opportunity to reduce the level of development on the site, with 1 unit, which was a type A unit, has been completely moved in its entirety, which you can see there, which is pointed out on the removal of the unit adjacent to the northeast of where A6 is, towards the Flensburg Way, which is marked there. Also taken the opportunity to join up 2 of the other units and to create larger units, so there's more offering in terms of the size of the units. Moving on to in terms of the potential route of the A582. This is one of the images which is taken from a county council consultation event which has been up on their website in the last week, and a consultation event which I attended today also, and spoken to some of the county officers there. It contains the same information as which is on the website, which is on the screen before you. You can see here, which is annotated that it does show on the plans, which are on all of the county council's consultation documentation, that the proposed vehicular access point for this application. So that has been taken into account in all of their information that has been provided. It's also noted that the proposals for the injunction incorporates more information, and it's less about dualling and it's more about junction works. The agent was asked to impose this information onto the final site plan just to indicate that the buildings which are now sited, with the removal of the units which was just discussed and the slight resiting of other units to the north which were previously adjacent to this road, does allow that the development could be built out in full. So you can see how there where it's been superimposed. Previously, there was a pinch point where that did overlap the landscape strip to the junction works, which are now proposed there. But you can see now that it's fully within the site as well. And that shows the northeast corner of the site where the existing access points would be closed off, which would be a benefit to the scheme as well. So based on this information and in line with the committee update sheet referring to the most recent site plan, based on this information, the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions as laid out in the officer's report and the committee update. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, thanks for your presentation. Okay, we have two councillors speaking in objection to this. First, we have Parish Councillor Baz Howard.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, officers and councillors. My name is Baz Howard. I'm a councillor for Farrington Parish Council. I'm attending this evening to raise objections against the approval of this development on behalf of Farrington Parish Council and the residents we represent. Whilst we welcome and support development that provides economic benefits to the community, any such development should consider the impact that this may have on the local residents and the infrastructure within that area. With regards to the development of Model Farm, we wish to make the following objections. One, this site is currently within a green belt area. The site was previously a farm that diversified into selling a few wooden planters, and to support the business, this was never an industrial site. Number 3, Croston Road is a residential area. The proposed development will have substantial greater impact on the locality than the current farm. 4, the plans to build 13 industrial units is excessive for a site that has limited access for commercial vehicles to load and unload on the site. Number 5, parking provision for 13 units is insufficient for the 32 employees the development is proposed to generate. Number 6, the lack of parking will force employees, visitors and associated trades calling on the site to park on Croston Road, which will have an impact on the highway, local residents and pedestrians. Number 7, the area is already very heavily congested during peak travel times, and the access to and from the development will increase the congestion and potentially lead to more stationary traffic at the junction of Croston Road. This will create increased hazards for road users and pedestrians, especially the large number of children who use the route to go to St Paul's School from the new housing developments on near Croston Road. Number 8, the increasing traffic congestion from the development will ultimately lead to an increase in pollution due to the stationary traffic at peak times. Number 9, the change of use will increase the noise and pollution level for local residents. Number 10, there are substantial industrial sites within the area and more have already been approved. And under development under development. Industrial units should be developed in the industrial areas, not residential. Number 11, for the reasons stated, we believe the development fails the G2 policy. In summary, we would ask that the Planning Committee consider the objections that have been raised by Farrington Parish Council and residents. The impact that it will have on local and community, on the local community, is unacceptable, and we ask that the application be rejected. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Howard. Councillor Michael Green, do you have anything else? Go on.
Evening, Chairman. Good evening, fellow councillors. So, speaking as the neighbouring ward councillor, but also county councillor and the parish councillor, so I'll declare an interest as a parish councillor, given that Councillor Howard has just expressed the views of the parish council. I would concur with a lot of what Councillor Howard has actually just said, so I'm not going to repeat all the comments, but just to comment on one or two key points. So, likewise, I would always, in principle, support developments that bring economic benefits to an area. But when we look at sites that create jobs, etc., nevertheless, due consideration must be given to the impact upon the community, the impact upon residents, the nature of the community, impact upon the infrastructure, and, importantly, our own planning policies. Now, the plans before us to demolish the buildings on site and to build 13 new units, I would submit, is somewhat excessive for a site with quite limited access for commercial vehicles that will be accessing and leaving the site to load and unload, etc. And there are concerns over parking, but I do note the comments that have been submitted by the Highways Authority in that regard. The main focus of my objection is the fact that the site is designated as being in the Greenbelt. Policy G1 of the South Ribble local plan, a local plan that we spent many years developing as a council, and we know, going through the current process of developing the subsequent local plan, how long these things take. And we took due regard to that to protect particular areas. And we've got to sometimes stand up and protect the Greenbelt. This site was previously an agricultural site in a rural location. Now, it can be whatever application comes in, and I know not the application that came in a few months ago for permitted development, and it just came under the threshold, I understand. Nevertheless, this was an agricultural site. It was a farm. That's what this site was. A farm which then subsequently diversified to some extent. They sold a few wooden planters and likewise. It was not an industrial site in any way, shape or form. I would submit that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. And my submission to you this evening, colleagues, is that no such special circumstances have been proven. Notwithstanding the report, and I thank the officer for the time and effort in producing the report and submitting their views this evening, but I don't see the special circumstances to overcome our Greenbelt policy. And I would urge colleagues to actually protect that. Greenbelt is there for a good reason. And I believe that this proposed development will be contrary to our own Greenbelt policy. I therefore respectfully ask colleagues to have due consideration to that, to listen to the objections which have been raised by my colleague Councillor Howard on behalf of the Parish Council and the wider community, and to reject this application before us this evening. Sometimes we've got to stand up for what is right, and if we don't, Greenbelt will not be left for any of us in the future. But thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Right, we have the ward member, Councillor Karen Walton.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the committee tonight and to thank Lisa for a comprehensive report. I'm Karen Walton. I represent Farrington West in South Ribble, and also I am a Farrington Parish Councillor. The planning application tonight proposes to demolish all the existing agricultural buildings on the site and erect 13 start-up commercial units let out as shells, which implies that we have no way of knowing what the units will be used for or what type of vehicles will visit the site for deliveries. This site was a former dairy farm in the Greek Belt, and a previous application to build on the site was deferred by this committee in December 2023. And although this application has been slightly amended from the original, it still does not comply with Policy G1, Protecting Greenbelt of the South Ribble Local Plan, and Protecting Greenbelt Land, Chapter 13 of the NPPF. That planning permission will only be given for the construction of new buildings unless there are special circumstances, as inappropriate development is harmful to the greenbelt and adversely affects the openness of land. The applicant has to demonstrate that very special circumstances exist to build in greenbelt, which, in my opinion, is not demonstrated in this application. Policy G5 of the South Ribble Local Plan also states that there are 3 areas of separation to protect built-up areas merging into each other and to protect the land between Farrington, Loster Cole and Penwitham, to ensure that the council is committed to protecting and enhancing green infrastructure, which includes this application site. Also, Policy G17, the design criteria, permits new development providing that the proposal does not have a detrimental effect on existing neighbouring buildings or street scene. Replacing a farmhouse and agricultural building with 3 industrial units certainly does this. Lancashire County Council have no objection in principle to the development, but have concerns over highway safety. But this application goes against Policy G17 of the local plan, as the type of access should reflect the type of road involved and the volume of traffic likely to use it. The access to the site and the level of traffic and vehicles associated with this type of development can only have a negative effect on the traffic flow and pedestrian safety in the area. After attending the Lancashire County Council consultation today concerning the repurposing of the junction for the A582, I have great concerns over the proposal to introduce a traffic signal junction to replace the 2 roundabouts where this site is situated, and introduce a traffic signal junction at the end of Croston Road, just metres from the proposed development's new access road. This would have considerable detrimental impact on the highway safety of the whole area. I'm not against the provision of new small business units, but they must be in the right place and the right size for the land available. And 13 units on a former dairy farm site is, in my opinion, far too many and will overdevelop the land and is inappropriate for the area. There have been hundreds of houses built in the surrounding land in Farrington and lots of industrial sites, resulting in a substantial increase in pedestrians and cyclists using the narrow roads and paths for their journeys to and from school. Residents have already complained over speeding traffic and the increase in accidents in the area. The applicant claims that the site was used for commercial purposes, but the land and buildings were previously just a dairy farm with previous commercial use. And previous developed land was agreed by this council in May 2024 under the Town and Country Planning Act for the use of 3 existing buildings for storage. Can this still be classed as commercial use as previously developed land? In my opinion, it is not. The application could potentially cause light and noise pollution to the residents in the surrounding areas, and I welcome any conditions imposed on the restrictions of operating hours to be daylight only, and there needs to be a more robust regular noise impact assessment and lighting impact strategy if the applicant is granted tonight, so that residents can be assured that this application will not have any more detrimental effects on their lives. So I would urge you tonight, colleagues, to really consider this issue of building on the green belt and the detrimental effect it will have on local residents. And I thank you for listening tonight, and I hope that you will reject the application. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Walton, thanks for your representation. I allowed you an extra minute because I respect you as the leader of the opposition. Right, okay, we have the applicant's agent, Sophie Marshall, wishing to address the committee. Evening, Sophie. Okay, you've got 4 minutes if you press the red button when you're ready to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm the agent of the application and I presented the case last time on behalf of the applicant. Since then, we've made some further changes to the scheme and submitted a further application in response to the comments at the last committee. The applicant has listened to everything that was discussed, considered the points and took the advice and went to the expense and time to amend the scheme again. I know I mentioned this last time, but it comes after 2 years of changes and discussions about the site, including 2 pre-applications with LCC Highways and South Ribble and a site meeting with the 2 local councillors on site. I wanted to confirm the council's preference was the commercial units opposed to houses. This was mainly due to the proximity of the road and the excellent transport links. During the site meeting with the applicant and the 2 councils last year, they raised comments received by local residents and said they would do so at committee. However, they appeared content with the scheme as a whole and the employment opportunities it would bring to the area. To address the comments raised last time, an application was submitted under permitted development rights to change the use of the pure farm buildings on site to a storage use. This has now been implemented and there is no question that the whole site is brownfield. Class R now allows 1,000 square metres of agricultural buildings to be converted to commercial use, subject to criteria. I just wanted to confirm that when that application was submitted for the Class R, it was 500. It's now been increased to 1,000. On site, we have 1,176 square metres of building. So if we put another application in, we would get, then hopefully, subject to the criteria, we would get the Class R on 1,000 square metres of that. What we've proposed is 846 square metres. So that's less than 150 square metres. At least 150 square metres that's less as that's proposed now compared to what the Class R permitted development rights would allow. By way of a reminder that the Class R includes shops, financial and professional services, restaurants and cafes, Class E business use, storage and distribution, hotels and assembly and leisure. National planning legislation has clearly been put in place to encourage the reuse of large agricultural buildings. It's acknowledged that the proposal is for new builds, but this will come. Will come compliance with the latest building regulations that were tightened up last year in respect of environmental efficiencies. They'll also look better for the area and attract more businesses. Redevelopment subject to the openness test is appropriate in the Greenbelt. Only late last week, we were notified of a revised plan for the road widening works. We've since responded to this and amended the plan again so that all units avoid the amended road scheme. And I must also point out that if the scheme is implemented, the developer themselves have to block off that access to the roundabout and onto the carriageway as well, because there are 2 access points. And if this scheme doesn't progress, it will have to be undertaken as part of the roadworks, as it's proposed on the amended LCC Highways drawings, irrespective of whether this scheme is approved or not. They want to move the access way away from the roundabout anyway. Just want to make a point that there's been lots and lots of amendments made as part of this application since its submission last year. Way too many to go through tonight, but we truly believe that we have addressed all the points now to provide a scheme that is acceptable and that will become an asset to the area, and we therefore respectfully request the application is approved. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Sophia. Before I bring this application into committee, you all have read your update sheets regarding the amended plan. Yeah, and so condition 2 has been updated. Okay, you're all aware of that? Great. Okay, I'll bring it into committee. Thank you. I've got Councillor Williams and then Councillor Smith.
Right. I spoke on this list last time. So there's a few things here I want to clarify that the first thing we talked about last time was the previous use and whether it was classed as previously developed. And obviously, there's been a lot of work done to actually prove that it's previously developed. And one of the things to actually combat that use was effectively the application for prior approval for Class R. Now, that Class R use at first application was up to is up to 500 square meters, and it was approved for 400. Well, and they got the permission for 498. Now we've been told that obviously it can now go up to 1,000. There is 1,100 on site, and there's a proposal for 840 to change into storage use. So effectively, there's still 160 square meters that is still a farm. So what effectively is happening is changing to Class R in a piecemeal fashion. It's not the whole site that's changing to Class R as storage. It's just been done piecemeal. This is just in my own opinion, to get around the effects on previous developed and change into storage. So that's the first thing. The second thing for me is where was I up to? Give me a second. That's the Class R bit. Intensification of the site. So obviously, if a site is used for storage, if we clarify the fact that it is a storage site has a regular number of movements backwards and forwards to it, whereas this proposal has got 13 units on it and all the associated movements, which is a massive over-intensification of either the farm or storage, whichever it is. And to me, that element of it contravenes G1F, where we would not have a greater impact on the openness of the green belt and the purpose of the land. Now, just because the use of a storage is people going backwards and forwards and storing things, 13 units is a completely different prospect to using something as storage as something previously developed. So it's the higher intensification of it, which is the damage to the green belt, is the way I see it. There's the element of G17 street scene as well. This is an industrial unit in a predominantly residential area as well, but that's a bit. I'm not sure whether that one would fly. So for me, I would like to propose an amendment, which is to refuse the application based on policy G1 category F, because this has a greater impact on the openness of the green belt because of the intensification of use of that particular site. So I'd like to propose an amendment to refuse.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Just let me get this straight. You just said it was residential, but it's in the green belt. Which is it? Is it residential or is it in the green belt? Which I don't understand.
I'm saying this site is located within the green belt, but the area itself around Croston Road is predominantly residential.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
I just wanted to clarify a point. I can't see it in the report, but there's a mention of operating times and operating hours. I just wonder if it were to go forward, are those somewhere? Thank you.
Lisa, are they conditioned, the times?
Yeah, they are conditioned on those as well, and a noise assessment as well.
Okay, Catherine, you wanted to come in on this, did you?
Yes, it was just to provide some clarification around Greenbelt policy. I've heard, obviously, the ward councillors speaking about Greenbelt, and it's a subject that we've had training on really recently. So I just want to reiterate what the NPPF actually says about development in the Greenbelt. And what it says is that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt. But there are certain forms of development that are not inappropriate, one of which is the partial or complete redevelopment of previously developed land. If it is accepted that the site is previously developed, and there's no greater impact on openness as a result of the development, the applicant is not required to demonstrate very special circumstances. So I just want to correct members, just so that we're aware that that is the position. I think as we sort of perhaps go further into the debate, there may be other issues raised, but I just wanted to clarify that. And clarify the position in relation to previously developed land, because that was the query that came up from members at the last planning committee. And the information we were given was that the site had previously been agricultural, and we know that over time that business had expanded and had diversified, and there was some industrial activity taking place on the site in terms of manufacturing of perhaps wooden planters and things like that. We also have photographic evidence within the department, and I think on one of the slides Lisa showed, of storage, external storage on the site, of a number of either containers or HGVs on the hard standing at the rear. And the position that the council took, having investigated the planning history at the time of the December meeting and during all the pre-application discussions with the applicant, was that there was sufficient information there to consider the site as previously developed land. And obviously when this application came into committee in December, members felt that actually that information perhaps wasn't strong enough. And so in discussion with the applicant, we sought to see if it was possible to obtain a certificate of lawfulness about the previous use of the site or any alternative. And the applicant suggested that they use the permitted development rights to establish clearly that there was a storage use on part of the site. And those buildings may not necessarily be the same buildings that were used for the previous manufacturing elements. So all told, we consider that site is previously developed. So then going back to what Councillor Williams was suggesting, we then have to look at, does the scheme have any greater impact on openness than the existing development? And if you visit that site, or in fact look at the aerial photographs, there is a substantial amount of buildings on that site, and we feel that the scheme as proposed will actually increase the openness of the site by having the road through the middle and not as much perhaps hard standing as there is existing. And we've got comparisons in the report in terms of footprints and volume for the existing buildings. So I think I just wanted to set the scene for members, and obviously happy to take any other questions specifically about the detail.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Councillor Williams.
Just a point of clarification. When we talk about openness, does intensification come into it, or is it openness as in just the layout of the site?
Openness is a difficult concept, and I think we touched on this in the training, and it has both spatial and visual qualities. So whilst it can relate, generally it relates to volume and footprint of buildings, but it can also relate to the appearance of the site. But as I've said, when we look at the scheme as a whole, our view was there was no greater impact on openness.
Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chair. This is just yet another application that really saddens me, because I can see the erosion of the green belt the way it's going. From a potential farm, be it that it's run down, be it that it needs tidying up or whatever, doesn't make it an excellent reason to stick loads of industrial units on and turn it into a small industrial unit area, which is what it's going to be. And for neighbours, they're having to live then with a small industrial space instead of a farm, be it run down or whatever, on that corner. That business was never a business. There was half a dozen, if that, planters, bird tables, small scale work done by one man. Now you're getting units, industrial units, vehicles coming and going with no control of what these units are going to be. We don't know what they're going to be using them for, how many people are going to be coming in and out. And with the
future changes of traffic on that area, I've been to the consultation today, it's going to cause big problems with vehicles going in and out of there in great numbers, which in 13 units could be great numbers depending on what goes on in there. The point is that Greenbelt reasons were they were only allowed if it was sports facilities, agricultural buildings, agricultural use, equestrian, churchyards, this sort of thing. And now we're moving away all the time. Every application's being chewed on and picked on and changed just so that we can allow yet another industrial unit on the potential piece of Greenbelt. So I want to second Councillor Williams in his refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'd just repeat again, the NPPF, obviously, Greenbelt policy has adapted over time. And one of the things the government has been mindful to allow through the Greenbelt policy itself in the NPPF and also through the use of permitted development rights is to bring forward alternative uses on previously developed sites or former agricultural holdings in the Greenbelt where the farms are no longer viable, because those buildings would only deteriorate if no new use comes forward for them. And in terms of the highway impact, as the agent for the application indicated, the permitted development rights allow a fallback position on such sites anyway, because they can apply to convert those buildings to a wide range of uses without planning permission. And any one of those uses will deliver a significant number of vehicular movements to and from the site. And we've also got to bear in mind that if this site did go back, which is highly unlikely, but did go back into an agricultural use, there could be HGVs going in and out of that farm holding at any moment in an unrestricted manner without any controls on hours of operation. And so I think we just have to be pragmatic and we have to use the policy that's laid down in the NPPF. And it isn't a question of perhaps wriggling round Greenbelt policy. It's looking what the policy actually says now and what it's seeking to deliver. And it's seeking to deliver growth and prosperity and the reuse of former agricultural holdings in many ways.
Okay, thanks for your advice, Catherine. I have Councillor David Shaw and Councillor Will Adams in that order.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Catherine. Could somebody put page 7 up, please? The picture of the site on page 7. Is that page 7?
Page 7.
What I'm looking for is the overhead photograph. Yeah.
No,
that one.
That's it. Oh, it's gone.
Now, I've been comparing in my mind the new proposal for the site use, given that it's previously developed land, and comparing it with that, and I'm saying to myself, which is more open space and which is a better use of that land for the people around? Because it seems to me that that's a very busy site with a lot of nasty stuff on it. And it may be that it is better to have a small number of units, 13 is the number they've come down to. Highways wouldn't be very happy with their new layout if they didn't feel that they can cope with the amount of traffic that the 13 units would be able to cope with. So my view is the officers have got this right and that we should approve it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Adams and then Councillor Stringfellow. So that's a proposal for approval. Thanks, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. And I do have to say, listening to all views stated tonight, I do have to say that I'm with Councillor Shaw on this. I think officers have have got this right in relation to the recommendation. I think, you know, the consultation on this seems to have been probably better than a lot of applications that come in front of us. The fact that they met ward councillors at the site, discussed those issues, they've gone away, they've made amendments and come back. You know, for me, that should be something that we always talk about and always discuss on this committee, and we always want to see that. Although, you know, it's not in law that they have to do that. So, you know, so that should be commended. In terms of the permitted development, for me, this is the deciding factor. With this application, this gives the council, the community and local residents a lot more power in terms of what this application looks like. Because if this is refused tonight, this site could be used for something very different. And in my view, like Councillor Shaw said, this application, I think, is a positive one. I think this will have a better visual impact on that community. Clearly, with the work that's the images in our pack show that, in my mind. So I think because of that permitted development, to allow the council to have those controls and those conditions in place, make this, in my view, a fairly straightforward decision. So I would second approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. I have Councillor Stringfellow, followed by Councillor Lomax. Councillor Stringfellow.
Thanks, Chair. It seems to me that the applicants worked really closely with the officers to ensure that the development is an acceptable development. They've reduced the number of buildings, moving them away from the perimeter and away from the roadways. They've also made it a more open appearance, as Catherine pointed out. When you drive past now, it's a mess, basically, but it looks like it'll be a much more tidy area, you know, with more open spaces. Looking at the openness of the green belt, to me, that's what we should be looking for. And in the core strategy policy 10, it seeks to protect sites for employment purposes. This is exactly what this is doing. You'll have 13 workshops there. We don't know what they'll be doing, but as Councillor Adams says, at least we have more control over what they might be doing if it goes through the planning process. So I would agree with the last two speakers, and I think it's a good proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stringfellow. Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, that's him. I've listened to it all very closely. I've checked out the space on Google Maps as well. Looking at the map on page 7, I think it's going to tidy up the area a heck of a lot. I know this site very well, driving past it a lot. It's permitted. I think it will be more open, and I think it will be more beneficial on the eye. Never mind the business of South Ribble. I think it's an eyesore at the moment, and it does need tidying up. I will be voting at this present time for, and I can't think of anything at the moment that would change my mind, but of course I'm happy to continue listening.
Councillor Smith.
I did ask a question, Chair, about the operating times, and if that could be confirmed, that might be helpful. Thank you.
Lisa, if you could. Is it Lisa or Kath? Is it Lizzie? Lisa.
Lizzie, I'm going to jump in because I know the answer. It's condition 22 that restricts the opening hours, the hours of use. So if you have a look down on to condition 22, let's have a look. I can't find
9 till 1.
There you go.
On Saturday, 8 till 6, Monday to Friday.
I think they're the construction.
Okay, so it's 8 till 6, Monday to Friday, and 8 till 1 on the Saturday.
Yeah, just to jump in, that condition relates to the construction hours. There are a few noise related conditions and operational hours, which are 22, 23 and 24 as the main one in terms of the acoustic report, and the controlling noise from deliveries, which is 7 till 7 Monday to Friday and 8 till 1 on Saturday, and no deliveries on a Sunday. If you did want to add in anything additional to that, maybe in terms of the operational side of things, just to clarify things, that could be added in additionally to those.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I didn't hear most of that, but I see the bit about no deliveries, and I see the bit about during the site preparation and demolition. There are times there, but not operating times for the business, I don't think. If that could be confirmed, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's, as I've just outlined, sorry if you didn't hear what I just said earlier, condition 24 is the main one, which refers to the acoustic report in terms of the delivery hours stated there. But if you wanted to add anything in particular in relation to the operational hours, it isn't specified in detail within that condition.
Right, so to be clear again, the delivery hours are the operating hours, is that what we're saying?
The delivery hours are the hours that things can be delivered to and from the site, but the operational hours in terms of when people work there, if you want to add an additional condition, we could do that. It probably be similar to...
Well, I think it's been suggested certainly by the parish councillors, and if it is going to be approved, and it might very well be, or it might not at this stage, but if it is going to be approved, I think the operating hours might be useful. It might be helpful for the residents in the area. Obviously, you don't want to restrict operating hours too much for businesses, but nevertheless, it is an area where people live.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. I mean, I've got 7 till... What? 7 till... Oh. Yeah, 13 hours, 7 till 8, Monday to Friday, 8 till 1 on a Saturday. No deliveries on Sunday, nationally recognised bank holidays. And we can condition the working times of the units, can't we? Yeah. So if you want to put a condition on the working hours, if it does get passed.
There may be a suggestion from the applicant, Chair, that perhaps that might be acceptable to the applicant. If Sophie, the applicant, would want to tell us what her conditions might be, but Councillor Williams, hurry up, please.
Oh, I'll be very quick. I've listened to what the officers have said regarding openness and that, and what my objection was formed on, and I don't want to object to something if I can't substantiate it, and it looks like I can't, so I would withdraw my amendment.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Councillor Smith.
Right, we're going to come up with the operating hours. I think maybe that could be agreed.
Sorry, Chair, could I just help? I think that in terms of operating hours, members are probably concerned about potential noise. But as we've already controlled delivery hours to the site, and as there is already a condition on saying that there should be no external storage and no external work carried out on the site, then any work that was carried out on site would be within the units. So it's unlikely, given the separation distances between those proposed units and the nearby residential properties, that there will be any issue in terms of noise and disturbance, because if there had been, then Environmental Health would have recommended that we applied a condition on operating hours. And the fact that they haven't leads me to believe that that's been fully assessed, and they're concluding that the conditions they have recommended, which we've included in the report, would be sufficient to prevent any harm to neighbouring amenity.
Thanks for that, Catherine. You've been extremely helpful on this. But Lisa wants to come in, and then I've got Councillor Mrs. Green wants to come in.
Yeah, it was just to add an additional comfort on that there is additionally condition number 25, which says that if there's any external plant to be installed, that they will require a suitable noise impact assessment to be submitted at that stage as well, just to provide comfort.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Councillor Mrs. Green, then Councillor Will Adams. You can come back once more, and then I'm going to close this debate down because there's members of the public here through their applications.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no external plant shall be installed until an application has been made. That wouldn't stop them working using that unit as an industrial unit and welding, drilling, doing whatever they want to do internally. So I think really, if it goes through tonight, I think strong conditions need to be put on that as to what type of employment goes in there. Because I had one in my ward with this sort of problem that bothered all the residents for miles around with the noise, and also 7 in the morning to 7 at night for deliveries. It's early in the morning and it's late for vans to be coming in and out at night. As far as residential impact, I think those hours are too early and too late. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. I have got Taz coming in now. Thank you, Taz.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification purposes, I noted that Councillor Williams mentioned that he wanted to withdraw the proposal to refuse. Yeah. Just looking at the actual council procedure rules around that, the alteration or withdrawal of a motion has to be consented both by the meeting and the seconder as well. So only if Councillor Green consents to that. So over to you, Councillor Green.
It's all right. It's all right, Mary. Don't worry. I'm going to fetch Councillor Adams in. Then Councillor Smith. Councillor Williams cannot withdraw his amendment to refuse unless you seconded. You seconded, so you need to withdraw as well. That's what Taz is saying. If you're not withdrawing, Hayden, I do apologise, but your haste at making a decision, you're stuck with it. Councillor Adams, then Councillor Smith, and then that is the debate over with. We'll be going to the vote. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I don't want to prolong the debate any further than we need to. It's just in relation to further conditions in relation to timings, etc. I mean, we certainly can't start dictating what type of business goes into those units. I'm also conscious of putting too many restrictions on new businesses as well that are starting out. It's already a difficult climate as it is. I think further restrictions or conditions will further impact that. I think for me, there's enough conditions in there to protect the local residents and community, and therefore I seconded the approval with the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Smith, and then we will be going to the vote after that. Councillor Smith.
Thank you for your indulgence, Chair. The three things that I mentioned last time, which is the status of the site as previously developed land, has already been established. And to consider a reduction of the number of units has been established, and also to address any conflict with potential route of the dualling of the 582. I think I've been to the presentation today, which I have to say was a bit of a dog's breakfast, but apart from that, that's been established as well. And on the basis of that, Chair, it would be unfair to refuse that at that stage. We asked for those things. Those items have been established already. And apart from anything else, I think it's giving something to South Ribble that we actually need, which is space for people to work, and we're very, very short of commercial property. We're very short of working property in South Ribble, very, very short, and we actually do need some. So I think it's actually filling a need for South Ribble as well. The site doesn't look very pretty as it is, and I think, to be quite honest, the permitted development has taking the rug from underneath us, and we really don't have too much of an alternative. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Smith. Your dog must be very posh because my dog gets a dinner, not a breakfast. Always has done, always will do. Anyway, right, so this is the procedure. We had a proposal for an amendment to refuse the application proposed by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Mrs Green, but then Councillor Shaw moved to approve, which was seconded by Councillor Adams. So we go to the vote on approval. Yeah. Well, the amendment was made first. Surely we take the second first. Okay, I stand corrected. I've made a right dog's breakfast of that, haven't I? So we will. Not really, no. No, you're all right. Just sit there and smile. Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment. This is for refusal proposed by Councillor Williams. If you want to vote against your own amendment, Councillor Williams, you're welcome to. Okay, seconded by Councillor Mrs Green. So this is for refusal. All right, can we have a show of hands for refusal, please? For refusal, please. We have 2 in favour of refusal. Okay, and so that's fallen. If we go to approval, please. A show of hands on approval. Okay, Taz, if you can tell us the outcome of that, because these ladies and gentlemen aren't here for this one, I don't think. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. So members have voted to approve planning permission, that being the demolition of existing buildings and erection of startups with conditions, including those mentioned in the update sheet. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Taz. Okay, if you were just here for item number 6, model farm, that's that item concluded. If anybody would like a comfort break, we can have 2 minutes if you wish. Anybody? No? No? Everybody happy? Right, okay, let's move swiftly on then to item number 7. This is a call in, this one. The Hollins, Roach Road, Salisbury. And Chris, would you like to present this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to an existing barn with a field access gate onto a private road that leads onto Roach Road. The application site is within an area of land designated as Greenbelt in the South Ribble local plan. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a part single-storey, part two-storey dwelling following the demolition of the existing barn. The proposed dwelling would be finished in natural stone cladding with a profiled metal clad roof. The dwelling would measure 3.1 metres to the roof eaves and 5.7 to the roof ridge. A first floor terrace is also proposed on the rear elevation. The proposed dwelling would have a footprint and volume that is less than the existing barn. However, the roof ridge would be 0.5 metres higher than the existing. The proposed dwelling would be served from the existing field access with the parking area to the front. Supplementary hedge and native tree planting is proposed together with the formation of a pond. And within the field to the south, an orchard is proposed to be planted, which would provide a 27% biodiversity net gain over the existing. An extant permission for the conversion of the barn to a residential dwelling exists. This permission is acknowledged to be a fallback position and would result in a similar sized dwelling to that currently proposed. This is a view towards the junction with Roach Road and a view west along Roach Road. For the most part, views into the site are limited along Roach Road. This photograph is the barn viewed from the existing field gate onto Roach Road. And the adjacent semi-detached cottages to the east are subject to Grade 2 listings. For the reasons detailed in paragraphs 10.1 to 10.7 of the report, the proposal constitutes inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. The NPPF and the local plan, however, still allow for inappropriate development to be permitted where very special circumstances can be demonstrated which outweigh the harm that would be caused to the Greenbelt. These are detailed in paragraphs 10.49 to 10.72 of the report. In considering the planning balance and the realistic possibility of the fallback position being implemented, officers are of the view that the cumulative benefits amount to very special circumstances. It is therefore recommended that members be minded to grant planning permission and that decision be delegated to the Chair and Head of Planning following the completion of the public re-notification period. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Chris. Right, we do have 2 members of the public wishing to speak against this application, and first up we have Anthony Thorpe. And just for clarification, I did receive an email from Mr. Thorpe, and I did reply. I did not give any kind of advice to him. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, and good evening, councillors. May I firstly thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all regarding my concerns and objection to this application. My name is Anthony Thorpe, and I'm an immediate neighbour, and I consider many of the objections previously raised by SRBC in the 2023 refusal still remain valid. The application is in Green Belt, however the applicants are seeking to justify the latest June 2024 application by arguing SRBC's previously was wrong and made a mistake in refusing the 2023 application. I trust you have had the opportunity to read the relevant application documents and my email to you councillors, and will agree with me and my neighbours and others that the proposed development is not appropriate for this site and surroundings, and there are no very special circumstances. So in the restricted time I have, I should like to raise some issues concerning documents submitted by the architects and their consultants where there have been errors, inconsistencies and omissions. As a result, it has not been easy to access, cross-reference and compare documents going back to 2022 and even 2014, which are referred to in the application documents. It has probably been not easy for Mr. Sarby either. The drawing shows a substantial building of some 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 4 living rooms and a large kitchen. I refer to the architect's related amended design and access and innovation statement, June 2024. Page 3 states the limitations of the applicant's existing property. That property is a reasonably sized property and can house 3 children who have subsequently left home and the 2 applicants. Page 4 states the design will prove future-proof any disabilities encountered. It is a design and design statement only for what could be provided in the future provision of disability requirements, so will be retrofitted if necessary. Page 6 states, as such, page 6 states, as such, there is no defined characteristic predominates. This is not correct. The character of the area is defined by traditional buildings with full height, random local stone walls, slate roofing and small windows. Page 9 states the majority of properties around the area are ribbon development, extensions and infill. This statement is not correct. Page 11 states the proposed building is an important contribution to the settlement fabric. This is not correct either. Page 12 states there is a considerable reduction in the building height. Not correct. In fact, the June design is taller than the February design, is now at 5.77 metres. Page 13 states there is a radical alteration. I agree there's a radical alteration, and as such, the design is an inappropriate building for this area of Green Belt. Page 19, comparative elevations referred to are not shown on page 14 or anywhere in the document. I refer to you my own drawing, of which I have sent to you, showing building dimensional and mass differences. The site to integrate with landscape very quickly. No explanation as to how it will. The landscape proposals and land design are not clear and are incorrect. The new drawing 17A, has recently been introduced, which confuses matters as to what areas of land are now defined as part of this development. 17A defines areas with blue and red lines with no definition or explanation of them. The new orchard has just appeared on 17A in the south section of the land. The south land has not been defined in any previous landscape design. The landscape drawings do not correctly quantify the very few numbers of existing trees or in their correct site position, which are supposed to screen the site. As a result, there are no restricted views of the site from Roach Road and Cripplegate Lane, nor will the proposals resolve this. So there'll be no shielding or screening. Page 34, no fossil fuels. So what are the 4 chimneys for? Page 35, flood zone. There is no reference to how the existing local flooding to the immediate area and how it will not affected by this new development.
You need to start tying up now.
Thank you. Page P36. 15. Right, okay. Page 36, have considered and adopted many recommendations of the neighbours. This statement is not correct. There have been minimal changes, and in fact the parish council have objected. The ecological report of the large pond referred to on page 6 is in my garden and has not been inspected, so not a full and conclusive ecological report, nor any conclusive comment on barn owls and migratory nesting. I shall now close, Chairman, and thank you for listening to me, and trust you will agree that this application should be refused.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Thorpe. Do we have a Mr. Youlden? Good evening, Mr. Youlden. Okay, you have 4 minutes to make your representations. If we can keep repetition to a minimal, if we can, please. Thanks.
Good evening. Doubtless you all know this area well. It's a leafy rural location with a number of attractive traditional properties. If anyone was to make an application for a house in such a lovely part of the Greenbelt, you would quite rightly refuse it. Planning regulations state that substantial weight should be given to any harm to the Greenbelt, and as the guidance says, inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. I'll come back to this later, and we seem to have had a theme this evening, don't we? In terms of conversion, however, if we consider conversion of the barn as an alternative, the legislation provides that the works to convert an agricultural building are very restricted. Substantial demolition and reconstruction or replacement of the existing fabric would go beyond what is allowed, and numerous planning appeals have reinforced it that it's not the intention to permit structural reconstruction of a building. The existing barn comprises low-level single-skin block walls with cladding above, which has been allowed to deteriorate and which would require extensive rebuilding to convert, which would be expensive. It remains, however, very substantial in size, and as such, it would be equally possible to provide the level of insulation, install eco-friendly equipment, provide later years living, and all the other stuff which is in the report within the envelope in a conversion. The applicants argued that it's uneconomic to convert the barn. Not that it can't be done, but in inverted commas, uneconomic. Yes, there are tax advantages in building from scratch. Yes, it may be cheaper to do so. And yes, a clean sheet of paper makes it easier for the applicants. But the cost of conversion for the applicants is not a reason to grant consent for redevelopment. In any event, given what I have already explained, it's highly questionable whether consent for conversion should have ever been given in 2015. We've had a discussion tonight about very special circumstance, and it's commendable that the case officer has worked with the applicants to redesign the building after previously refusing an earlier similar application. Although the result is reduced marginally in size from the original submission, it remains very large. It has a higher roofline and an increase in length on the main aspect facing Roach Road. Despite this, and surprisingly, it doesn't even incorporate a garage, so cars, garden storage and other signs of domestic life will inevitably further impact on the area. What is proposed is a grand design, a very modern block incorporating numerous windows, large roof lights and roof glazing, as well as a balcony or terrace, which is completely at odds with the area. There's a distinct style to the area comprising stone and render buildings with relatively small windows. Despite existing hedges, it's visible from roads and bridleways on 3 sides and will stand out significantly. The numerous windows and balcony will have some impact upon the amenity of neighbours, and it's a very sizable and arguably unattractive feature in the landscape. The case officer argues that there are very special circumstances, yet there weren't any when it was previously refused. Admittedly, you can't have a list of what constitutes very special circumstances because they will vary from site to site. And the decision maker, as here, needs to take a value judgment. But what has been established in planning appeals is this is a very high bar to achieve. I have tried to argue this myself unsuccessfully for clients on a number of sites with what I consider to be far stronger arguments than is the case here. I've also scoured other cases for examples for my other projects. In short, I can't see anything in this proposal which could be described as very special circumstances. Conclusion. In conclusion, my clients fully understand the desire to stay in the area. The proposal is not the way to achieve that, however. A previous application has already been refused on this site and the revised building will be a blot on this beautiful landscape. In our opinion, there have been no special circumstances demonstrated since the previous refusal, and we urge you to refuse the application outright and not to refer it on for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation, Mr. Youlden. 4 minutes, 69 seconds, well done. Right, we do have the applicant with us this evening, Nick and Jutta Buckley, who'd like to address the committee, I think. Yeah. Good evening to you both. Because there are 2 of you, you will be permitted 8 minutes. Okay? You might not take that long, but that's what you will be allowed.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. I'm Jutta Buckley and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about our planning application for the Hollins Barn. Our proposed design is not just a quick fix, build, sell up and move on application. We've been trying to convert our asbestos concrete barn for the past 10 years. Since our initial design in 2014, which was approved under the Q class permitted development rights, we found the conditions too restrictive for our needs. Our commitment to converting the barn has only grown stronger since caring for my in-laws. Fortunately, their house was big enough to accommodate all the necessary apparatus for at-home care, but it made us realise that for any future building for ourselves must meet exceptional standards. Both my husband and myself are from medical backgrounds, with extensive experience caring for people in their own homes. The ethos behind Hollins Barn is a home for future living, adaptable for anyone who has disability needs. This project allows us to use our experience to design a building that caters for these needs. It will be a build for the future, not only for ourselves, but for the others who require a house that can be adapted. While there are many barn conversions in our area, the Hollins Barn will be the only one specifically designed for future living and self-reliance. The design is spacious, which some may say is not suitable for downsizing. However, as we have experienced, you need space for hoists, commodes, wheelchairs and other aids. Reinforced ceilings for a track hoist allows for self-care as compared to a ground hoist, which needs at least 2 carers. The design also allows for living carers, preserving independence for everyone. Yes, it is in Greenbelt, but the design will be of smaller footprint and volume and only compromise marginal increase in the height from the existing building. The proposal includes other added benefits, including a self-build development, a sustainable design, a high-quality architectural appearance with biodiversity net gain. I hope the committee will take all this into consideration and see that our design aligns with the purpose of our ethos, we envision. Thank you for listening, Jutta.
Okay, Jutta, thank you very much. Nick.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Dr. Nick Buckley. Thank you for allowing me to talk about our application for a self-build on our land. From my experience of working in general practice and looking after my parents, I'm very aware of the physical, mental and social health problems that can occur as we get older. And I am getting old. You would say I'm getting very old. Old age is not just about reminiscing with friends and family. Too often there is fear and worry. Worry about whether there's enough money for heating and repairs. Fear of falling asleep and waking to find your partner is dead. And how do you cope? Fear of falling ill and not being able to get help. Fear of being alone and not having anybody to talk to. We have a friend whose mother over 90, poor eyesight, poor hearing, living in a 2-up, 2-down stone terrace, clearly at risk and needing residential care. As a GP in the 90s, I would have phoned the social services, spoken to a social worker. She'd have been seen that day and in a place of care that night. Today, I would need to fill in an online template, email it to the safeguarding team. An algorithm would judge her urgency. A worker would be allocated to her case. They would need to visit to make an assessment, and then they would find a place of safety. Despite being rated as urgent, this lady had still been waiting a couple of weeks when she fell, fractured her hip and dislocated a knee. The safety net of the NHS and social services care let her down, perhaps even contributing to her problems. That was this year. This is not a system that I feel safe in or can rely on. We all need to take responsibility for anticipating our care needs in the future. The wider consideration is if we do, it will reduce our reliance on the state, and there will be potential cost savings for the NHS, for social services, and for local councils. We want to convert our barn because we are trying to take that responsibility, and we want to stay where we are. We've lived and contributed to our village over 30 years. We have an established network of friends and neighbours. We have good access to medical and dental care. We have 3 hospitals within 20 minutes ambulance journey, local shops in easy reach. We come from Lincolnshire and Norfolk. We've always lived in the countryside. We respect and support Greenbelt, and we are not trying to damage it. We just want to replace an existing building that's already Q-class permissions. We are not developers looking for a quick profit. We are long-term residents in Samlesbury, and we want to stay. With collaboration with the planning officers from the SRBC, we have worked hard to ensure that our plans respect Greenbelt and address all the necessary planning considerations. The design will have a similar visual impact on Greenbelt as the existing barn. Simply converting the current structure has inherent limitations, but a new design will better address our current and future needs, as well as being more energy efficient. It has been a priority to maintain the privacy of our neighbours and safe access to our property. And I would like to thank the planning officers for their proactive approach and cooperation with our planning team. I urge you to consider the personal and community benefits of our self-build. It will ensure that we have a house that meets our needs as we age and could be used as an example of principles that should be incorporated in all new houses. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope you support our application.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for your presentation, Nick and Jutta. Just before I bring this into committee, you mentioned a fallback position, Chris. What can you advise us on that before?
Yes, if you just bear with me one moment, I'll just try and get the presentation back on. Yes, so permitted prior by way of prior approval under permitted development rights, permission has previously been granted on two occasions, one of which remains extant and can be implemented for the conversion of the barn into a residential dwelling. Now, the conversion isn't necessarily for buildings as they stand and with the current openings, and the permitted development rights allow for, say, for example, cladding to be added, which is the case with this one, because obviously currently you have a low concrete wall and cement fibre type sheeting material above. So this is the site plan for the Class Q conversion as it stands, and these are the elevations for the conversion. As you can see, there are window openings that have been inserted. There is cladding added to the roof, cladding added above the concrete wall, but this remains an extant permission that, should planning permission be refused, or even if planning permission is granted, this permission remains extant and can be implemented.
Okay, thanks, Chris. That's a lot clearer to me. Right, let's open up to committee. Anyone? Councillor Adams, followed by Councillor Stringfellow, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for those who spoke. As a matron of an A&E department, or modern A&E department, I think I could talk all day about the need of home living. So I absolutely hear you there, but I'm conscious not to discuss that here tonight. I think like the previous application, I think there's obviously a fallback position there, which I can see why the applicant has put this new application in. Clearly, it is Greenbelt. I think everyone has alluded to that. I actually think what's proposed in front of us is a much better application than the fallback position, because from this point of view, something will be built, whether it's a conversion of the existing barn or the new development in relation to, or the new build, should I say. And in my mind, I am kind of deciding to go with the officer's recommendation here. I think I've listened to, I was kind of to and fro at one point in terms of whether it would be better for the conversion of the existing, but I don't think that there'll be that much change in relation to the impact of the wider community and residents. And given that, I think I will be proposing approval, Chair, with the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Stringfellow and then Councillor Mulliner.
Thanks, Chair. At first, I was a little bit worried that this new build was going to be a little bit too modern for the area. But when looking at, in comparison of the two, the fallback position of renovation of the barn, I think that would be a letdown to what you're planning with the new build, which sounds amazing. And I think that it would be a shame to not go ahead with the new build. So I would second that proposal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stringfellow. Councillor Mulliner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't believe that we've met the exceptional circumstances that we need to get things through when we're talking about the green belt. It's really important that we look after our green belt and we're not just putting things there and accepting things for the sake of accepting it. In my opinion, that the design of this, it's not fitting for the area.
and I think it should be refused. I appreciate this is going against our officers' decision, but feel this is still it's inappropriate development, and it should not be allowed. And therefore, I propose refusal, Chair, on the grounds of G1 of the South Ribble Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Molyneux. I have Councillor Williams and then Councillor Farnworth.
I've been to and fro with this one as well, and I've been there with looking after elderly relatives, and I know how difficult it really is, and how occupants of the house would want to live their lives, and how they deal with later years is a matter for them. It's to commend it. They want to look at how they deal with that. The centre of this is the fact that we already have a permission from 2015 that something is going to get built there, and whether it's conversion of the existing or knocking down and starting again is just looking at the design of the two. And I agree with Councillor Adams. Something is going to get built on here anyway, because of the fact that the permission already exists. So we can't really have the debate about whether something's going to get built there or not, because it will do. It's whether the new design is better, and I do think it is a better design rather than something that is cobbled together on an existing barn. It's more what's the word? There is a word I'm looking for. It's not the economic side of it. It's the fact it's better for the actual building itself. It's more sustainable. That's the word I was looking for. So I would go along with approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Councillor Farnworth.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to echo the thoughts of Councillor Adams and Councillor Stringfellow. I think an awful lot of work has gone into this, and in terms of the impact, I think certainly in terms of the sort of locality is sort of fairly minimal. And hearing what the registered speaker and the applicant has to say, I think we need to consider this for what it is. And as Councillor Williams said, in 2015. An application did go in, and I think it's inevitable that something will be built on this, so I'm all in favour for approval.
Thanks, Councillor Farnworth. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I want to step away from the motivations for doing this and just look at the planning side of stuff. Fine, motivations is all very well, but what for me seems to be the obvious situation is I don't like the idea of a new looking building in that setting. That's a personal preference. I think it doesn't fit. That said, we have a situation in which there is a fallback, and I have to say, sorry, you've put money into the designs and so forth for the planning application that you have granted already. And I do, between the two buildings, prefer the new version. In those circumstances, I think I have to agree to accept the new planning application in preference to the fallback position.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say, first of all, it's very commendable, your intentions, and I'm with all that, having cared for an elderly relative myself, I realise where you're coming from and have a lot of sympathy for that. But as Councillor Shaw said, we've just got to decide this on planning reasons, and I'm going to harp on again, it's Greenbelt, it's near the Hollins, which is a grade 2 listed building. The design to me is an inappropriate development in the Greenbelt because it wouldn't match at all with the existing grade 2 building nearby. I can't see that there's no special circumstances to justify the proposal, and it's contrary to the NPPF and the G1 and Policy 22 of the core strategy. Samlesbury Parish Council are objecting to this design because of the impact on neighbours as well. The terrace that's planned, whereas it's lovely and everything, but it could potentially cause overlooking, loss of privacy. And it states in the report that the driveway and parking and the lawn is encroaching on the green belt. So I'm afraid I would have to agree with Councillor Mullinor and second refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Catherine, you seem to be...
Yeah, it was just to make a couple of comments.
Put your mic on, please.
Sorry. Just to make a couple of comments, particularly in relation to Councillor Green's sort of comments there. And I listened to the range of policies that you wanted to perhaps take, suggest concerns with, one of which was Policy 22 on biodiversity and geodiversity. And obviously we have consulted our ecological advisors in relation to this application. So I would urge caution in using reasons like that if members were looking to refuse this application. But I think the crux of this matter is the site is in the green belt. We have acknowledged that it's inappropriate development, and therefore we have to look at very special circumstances. And it is right that they are a high bar, but they're subjective. And in this particular circumstance, we are going to have development on that site. There's already an approval been granted for a new dwelling there. And in the same way that this proposal would have external areas with, perhaps gardening equipment or car parking external to the property, well, the barn conversion would potentially have similar with it. So this isn't a site where it's open land and we're considering the proposal for a new dwelling. This is a site where there is a permission already in situ for a property, a converted property, albeit. So really it's looking at, is there any additional harm arising from the development? And you'll see in the report, we've assessed the impact on openness, we've assessed the impact in terms of encroachment into the green belt, we've assessed the impact in terms of heritage assets, biodiversity and all other matters, and concluded that in this particular case, very special circumstances do exist to outweigh the harm, largely because of the weight we have to give to the fallback position. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Right, I'm going to close the debate down now. And we are going to vote on the amendment first for refusal, which is proposed by Councillor Mullinor, seconded by Councillor Mrs Green, and that is what we're voting on, refusal. Okay, that's the amendment, so that is what we're voting on. I'm being looked at by Taz. What is it, Taz?
It's fine, Chair. It's just minded to refuse. Yeah. That's not been carried, so we will now vote on minding to approve permission subject to conditions and the decision be delegated to Chair of Planning and Head of Planning and Enforcement on completion of the re-notification period. Thank you. That's been carried, so members have decided to grant or minded to grant permission subject to conditions and the decision be delegated to Chair of Planning and Head of Planning and Enforcement. Following completion of the re-notification period should no new issues be raised. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Taz. Thank you. Thank you all for coming for that item on the agenda this evening. We will move on to item 8 in a couple of minutes. If you've just come for that one item, if you could leave, you can leave now, and we will take item 8 in a couple of minutes' time, okay? Thanks very much for attending, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Isn't it? Because it's still in the minds. It's absolutely not.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your patience. Let's move swiftly on to item 8, which is Hopton's Bar, Chapel Lane, Longton. Fiona, welcome.
Thank you.
If you'd like to present this item, please.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. So Hopton's Bar in Longton got planning permission as a drinking establishment in 2023 and opened in October 2023. This application is seeking to vary condition 10 of that planning permission with regards to extending the opening hours by 30 minutes extra every day, except for on a Friday when it would be an extra 90 minutes. So the proposed opening hours would be, on the proposed condition, 11 a.m. till 11:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, and 10:15 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Sundays and bank holidays, which would keep it in line with the licensing hours. And they're detailed in paragraph 4.3 in the report. You can see there Hopton's Bar shares the ground floor with the funeral directors, and all those premises on the first floor above Hopton's Bar and the funeral directors are all commercial activity. There's no residential above. There's been 167 representations, with 31 objecting to this and 136 supporting to the extension of the opening hours, as listed in paragraph 7.1 in the report. So there's just some photographs for you to have a look. Standing at the front of Hopton's Bar, there's a small terrace to the front which can be in use till 10 p.m. each night. It faces onto Chapel Lane with the Ram's Head across the road with the car park for Ram's Head. There's Liverpool Road there, and then you can see just directly to the north is Spa, and then the commercial district for Longton continues to the left, and School Lane is immediately to the left there on the other side of the funeral directors. There's some images here, just taken from each side of that building where Hopton's Bar is. So on the western side, you can see School Lane there with the external staircase which leads to the first floor commercial premises. To the eastern side, the red brick building there is in use as a financial planning services and a dentist, so that's also commercial use. There's a driveway down the side of Hopton's Bar there which leads to the small car park at the rear, and Kirkland's residential Buckland, which is at the rear as well. And you can also see in that top right photograph the side and the rear of number 1 School Lane, which is also the nearest residential property to the back of Hopton's Bar. Just to have a look at the site location from above. So Hopton's Bar is in the central location there again, facing onto that junction with Liverpool Road, School Lane and Chapel Lane. And those residential properties, again, the nearest one, School Lane, number 1, and Kirkland's are at the back. So this application, there's been no objections from licensing and no objections from environmental health with the change to the opening hours. And this application to vary the opening hours is recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions, which includes a new condition to close the bifold doors at the front of the property at 9 p.m. each day. And please note that that's on as condition 11 of the report, which would be updated to state that the bifold doors should be closed between the hours of 9 p.m. and 10 a.m. each day, just so you're aware of when they would be closed. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your presentation, Fiona. Very well done, I must say. Right, the ward member, Councillor Will King, had hoped to attend this evening, but he's got some pending very good news that's going to cause him suffering for the next 20 odd years or so, where he and his wife are expecting the birth of a newborn, so he couldn't come. So given those exceptional circumstances, and with my approval, you should have read your agenda pack for this evening, and I've allowed his comments that he would have made to the committee to be included, so you could all read them, and he is the ward member, obviously. We haven't had any members of the public register to speak on this application in time. So we just have the applicant, Mr. Tom Havlin, who'd like to speak on the application if he's here this evening. Good evening, Tom. If you'd like to come to the table and okay, so you have 4 minutes, Tom. Okay,
thank you. So my name is Tom Havlin. I am the operator, one of the owners, and the DPS at Hopton's Bar. We're a family-run business. We've been operating since the 7th of October 2023. We've very quickly become a popular local drinking establishment situated near other businesses and licensed premises. This application for an amendment to planning, along with a licence which has already been granted, was submitted after 8 months of trading. During this period, we've built a strong local reputation as a safe, high-end, family-friendly bar. This reputation has created a demand for slightly extended trading hours, which is essential for the growth and survival of our business, especially during certain times of the year. In the 8 months of trading, we've also ran 7 temporary event notices, of which we operated until midnight, which reflects what we're requesting for now. Despite these later hours and these temporary event notices, we do not receive any complaints to licensing, environmental health or planning department. Since opening, we've also not had any incidents arise, which police presence has been required at the venue. Complaints and objections only arose after we applied for the planning amendment. As a business, we take residents' concerns seriously. We have always displayed signs in the bar reminding customers to park legally and safely. After consulting with our local councillor, we updated these signs to include information about a public car park just across the road, directing all customers to use this. In addition, our door staff have also been briefed and trained on local parking options and where to advise customers to park safely and accordingly. Only after we applied for the planning amendment did we receive any noise complaints. We immediately addressed these concerns by agreeing to close the bifold doors by 9 p.m. should the weather let us open them. Until that time, we've been diligently doing this from the date we agreed. Furthermore, we also ensure all our artists use our own internal speaker system, therefore allowing us to control the sound levels at all time and preventing the use of any external speakers not under our direct control. We will continue to work alongside licensing, planning and EHO to address any further potential concerns. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Hopton's Bar. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Tom. Let's bring this into committee, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Williams.
This is quite simple for me. This is it's clear from licensing and environmental health. This is a well-run and managed establishment, and all they're basically asking for is parity with the rest of the establishments that are in the area for Rams across the road and possibly the Black Bull that's further down the road. And I don't see it be particularly fair to restrict their licensing hours to anything different to what they've got in the surrounding area. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm quite happy to propose approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. I have Councillor Farnworth, then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to second Councillor Williams's proposal. I think as a council, we always say that we should be supporting our small businesses, especially new businesses. So I'd like to second the proposal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Farnworth. Councillor Adams has withdrawn. Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can see all the points. There's other drinking establishments all around. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Rams, do they drink outside or is it just inside? I'm not sure. They do outside as well. Right, okay. Only problem I see, well, midnight on a Friday and a Saturday, it's quite late. And then by the time everybody drifts off, it's going to be 1 o'clock. I'm a bit concerned about the parking because there is a parking place across, but it's very limited and you will get done. It's one of these private places that take a photograph and what have you. There's not a lot of parking in that area. If there's any music, could we put a condition on? You know, you can put these, we've had these before when we've had applications by pubs and that, where they've got to get one of these music noise control machines where the music's only allowed to get to a certain level. I don't know what they're called, but could we put that on for sake of the residents around, where it controls the sound of, the level of music inside the establishment?
I'm sure we could. I'd just turn my hearing aids down, but go on, Fiona, you go with it.
Thank you. So we're just looking at seeking to vary the opening hours with this, but on the original planning permission, which does carry over with this planning permission, there is a condition on there about amplified and live music played with a sound limiting device that Environmental Health are happy with. So that's already in place.
It's worried about saying that we'll close the door for outside at 9 o'clock. I mean, I was there at the weekend. It was Longton Live, and I went there, and it was 10, 11, after 11, and it was like an absolute party atmosphere, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a stick in the mud, but it was a very loud noise and everything while well past. So it wasn't restricted to 10 o'clock. And by saying it's going to be 9 o'clock, I've just got a bit of worries about that, a little bit. Of that. I'm okay with, I mean, certain dates, say New Year's Eve, while 1 o'clock, I can understand they want to bring the new year in. Fair enough, that's an exception once a year. But having it a few times a year while that time, I think might be a bit, it's not conducive with that centre of Longton, which is, it's quite quiet, it's near the church, it's got another takers next door. I know they're not going to be bothered about it, but you know what I mean? It's the shall we say, the environment around that area, really, that we need to just keep it under a little bit of control. Thank you.
Well, fancy people in Longton enjoying themselves. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Councillor Mulliner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could I just ask for clarity? You were saying before about it's trying to bring it up to speed with everybody else. Is that the times that we've got? Is that agreeing with all those?
The times actually that applied for here are actually still more restrictive when compared to other local establishments. So the times still aren't matching what the Ram's Head could do across the road, or the Black Bull further up the road, they can open later.
Right. And it's the applicant who's asked for these times?
Yes, it is, yeah. They've come in with what they would like at this moment, yes.
Whereas they could have had longer if you'd have dealt
potentially
with
if they want
across
to.
the board,
Okay. They've just assessed what they want at the moment for their business.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mulliner. Councillor Adams, then Councillor Lomax, then Councillor Smith, then Councillor Shaw, and I think we'll be calling it a day. No? Are you? No? Okay. Councillor Adams, Councillor Lomax, and Councillor Smith, in that order, please.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. And I think it's an important point to make in relation to consistency, because it is important that we give this business just as much chance to succeed as the others. It's right that we've got protections in place. One thing I was looking at in terms of the rear of the property and kind of throwing away glass bottles and cans outside, and the timings of this, those conditions are in the report. So that was something that I was looking at in terms of potential impact for the the nearest residents. So yeah, for me, I think that the conditions set out in the report safeguard the local community while balancing the fact of supporting a business in a very difficult climate that we currently have. So in my mind, I'm very happy to support approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, I'll be back in this. Longton Live was a separate event under a separate issue where everyone was involved. They've already said that they hold the music down within the building. We want everyone to be able to trade under the same conditions, which will benefit this particular place. Quite happy to support, and I would have supported longer. However, there we go. We vote on what we get. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lomax. Councillor Smith, and then we will tie up the debate on this one.
Yeah, nothing really to add to that, Chair, to be quite honest. Don't want to go over old ground. It wouldn't be any good to me. I'll be in bed by 9 o'clock.
Right, okay. So we're going to the vote on, we don't have any other proposals, do we? No. So we'll go to the vote. This is for approval of the opening hours for Hoptons at Longton.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to approve that application unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Taz. Moving swiftly on, item 9 this evening, Bluebird Golf Centre, Preston New Road, Samlesbury.
Right, thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Tonight for Bluebird Golf, we've got 2 separate applications, one for planning permission and one for listed building consent. I'll present them together. They're the same thing, but we would need 2 separate decisions. Okay. I've done something. I'm sorry, that's my fault. Okay, Bluebird Golf is a 4.3 hectare golf driving range in Samlesbury. It's surrounded by trees on all sides. You can see the red edge. The plans we have aren't very clear on screen, so I'm going to do it all from this one. Samlesbury Hall is in the west, and it's separated by Samlesbury Hall Communal Car Park, which also houses the Hall's Heritage Cafe. Excuse me. To the east is the Enterprise Zone. To the south is a small footpath separated by a little bit of a field and Preston New Road. To the north is British Aerospace, you can see here, and the Shepherd's Hut glamping site that belongs to Samlesbury Hall. And west is Samlesbury Hall complex itself. The proposal is for new and replacement ball stop fencing and for retrospective permission for retention of some that's already there. The yellow line on the right-hand side is the existing fence. That's retrospective application. It will be 18-metre towers for a 60-metre length. The blue section, which is just this little bit here, is an existing scaffolding ball stop structure, for want of a better word. I'll show you that in a second. That will be replaced with proper fencing, and it's 28 metres long with an 18-metre high supporting structure. And the purple section, which is along Preston New Road, that's new fencing. There'll be 120 metres, and that rises between 15 and 20 metre towers. Excuse me. Oh, that's better than I thought it would be. It was very pale before. The structures themselves are, as per the plan, they're a supporting base with a tapering tower, and they'd have ball stop netting between. I'll show you the existing one, which is exactly as it should be on the next slide. Okay, so these are the existing arrangements which are to be retained. So it's retrospective permission for this section. I went on a very, very sunny day, and this looks really bright, but actually it's barely noticeable when you stand against the trees. It just seems to stand out on this photograph. We've had professional ball strike assessments, and environmental health are satisfied with those. This is the existing structure, the scaffolding structure with netting in various places. That will be replaced with the same sort of netting to its left on this photograph, the one that I've just shown you. And Samlesbury Hall is behind these trees. You can't see it. And these are just photographs. This is the facing Preston Road, so the netting will go across this section, and this faces BAE on the left, so the aerospace is behind it, and the Enterprise Zone will be behind on the right. You can tell that all the site boundaries are tree lined. There is an argument that this netting would impact on the openness of the green belt. But when you look at it, they are lightweight structures apart from the base supports. They're viewed against a backdrop of mature trees, and whilst they're sparse during winter, they are relatively deep in context. There is betterment for users of the car park and the highway from a safety perspective, and there is an exception in Greenbelt terms as a sports facility. Historic England have also said that there will be no substantive harm or loss of significance to Samlesbury Hall or to the Grade 2 Lodge on Samlesbury Hall's context, and the nearest property is 155 metres away, nearest residential property. It's policy compliant as far as we're concerned. Now, we would recommend that there's a slight change to the recommendation wording, and that's my fault, that members are minded to approve planning permission or grant listed building consent with conditions, and that will be delegated to the chair and head of planning. We've not quite finished a public consultation. I had to change the description ever so slightly, so we've gone out again. That ends in about 3 days. So subject to there being nothing else, it will be delegated if you're minded to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah.
With it being 2 applications, are you proposing on both or just the one?
I'll get to that, Chair. Yeah, I think this is fairly straightforward, I would say. There is an impact. I presume, they're losing a lot of balls in the trees, which will be impacting their business, I'm sure. I quite often hit most of my balls into those trees, which is probably why they're losing so much money. I'm only joking, I don't play golf. But being serious, it's just straightforward for me. I think it'll help the business with having very little impact on the green belt. So I will propose approval with the conditions and the amendments that Debbie has set out in her excellent report. Thank you. And that's for both, Chair. Sorry. Yes.
So you did come to it. Thank you, Councillor Adams. So that's approval for the golf range and for the listed building. Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams. Oh, did you not? That's unusual. Councillor Smith.
I'll second the proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Lomax.
I've no need to say anything after it's been seconded.
Absolutely correct. Do we have any other proposals? So we need to do a vote on the golf range and then a vote on the listed building, don't we? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to the electronic vote. This is for approval on the first item.
Thank you, Chair. So that's been carried. Permission's been granted. Sorry, minded to grant permission and subject to obviously delegation to Chair of Planning and Head of Enforcement following completion of the extended public consultation. Apologies.
Okay, this is the next one.
So that's in respect of the listed building consent. So again, minded to grant that delegated to Chair of Planning and Head of Planning Enforcement.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Taz. All right, thank you very much indeed for your participation this evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been enlightening. I'll see you all in October.
Don't you threaten us.